Hello friends, in this video tutorial, let us understand the concept of table partitions in SQL Server. So for this, let us go to SSMS. Now let us create a new database called employee country underscore DB, right? So this database will be created in which there will be 4 file groups, okay? So this is the primary file group in which there will be one file called this primary underscore data1p.mdf. There will be second file group .canada.fg, okay, on the D drive. There will be third file group called India.fg on the D drive, and there will be fourth file group called USA.fg on the C drive. Okay, so there are 4 different files in the 4 different file groups. Okay, so let us create this database. So the database is created. Let us go and refresh. So the database is available. Okay, it doesn't have any tables. Fine. Let us use this database. Let us create a part. Now basically for doing table partitioning, we have to follow 3-step procedure. First step is create a partition function, okay, in which you define that which are the range of values based on which you want to partition. Okay, second is create partition scheme, and this scheme will be created using partition function. Okay, and in that you just specify that which are the different file groups on which the data which has been partitioned, okay, or the data which has been bifurcated will be stored in which file groups. That's what you specify over here in the partition scheme, and partition scheme is defined using partition function. Okay, and the third step is to create the table which uses the partition scheme. Okay, so let us go ahead with the first step. Let us create a partition function. The syntax is create partition function name, and then the data type of the column based on which we want to create the partition. So in our case, we will create partition based on country column, employee country column, which has got varchar 30 as the data type. So specify that data type over here. Okay, as range left for values, and specify the exact values based on which you want to create the ranges. Okay, so as we have defined range left, which means all data which is coming or which is lesser than this value, Canada value, and including the Canada value. Okay, this all data will be on the first partition. Second, all data which is greater than Canada but which comes before India and also India value, that all will be in the second partition. Similarly, all values which are greater than India or less than equal to USA will be third partition, and all values which are greater than USA will be in the fourth partition. Okay, so we have created this partition function. Okay, so let us create. Okay, so this particular partition function has been created now. Now based on this partition function, create a partition scheme. Okay, create a partition scheme. So what is the syntax? Create partition scheme name as, then you need to, the partition scheme depends on partition function. Okay, so after as you have to define the partition function based on which you want to base this scheme. So which means after as you will write partition and the partition function name. This name is exactly the same name that we have defined over here. Okay, so partition function. 2. Now we know that this particular partition scheme based on these 3 values will divide data into 4 different classes. Okay, we have already discussed which are the classes: less than equal to Canada, less than equal to India, less than equal to USA, and greater than USA. So the 4 ranges have been decided by the partition function. So where will these 4 data of 4 ranges go? They have to go into some partition, some file group, right? You can also specify same file group name over here, but you have to specify it 4 times. Okay, or you can specify another syntax for all file group, right, which specifies for all file group. But over here, as we have created 4 different file groups, while creating the database, we will specify that we want this data which has been bifurcated into 4 different ranges to go into 4 different file groups. So first is Canada file group, second is India file group, third is USA file group, and fourth is primary file group. So this is the way in which you want to bifurcate this four type of data into four ranges. So create execute. So partition scheme has also been defined. All these things can be seen over here. If you go to storage and if you go to partition scheme or partition function, you can see both these things defined over here. First will be partition function that will be defined. Based on partition function, partition scheme will be defined. Okay, and the last step remaining is to create a table. Okay, the syntax is create table name, then the column names followed by the data types. Okay, over here we are introducing for the employee country column, we are introducing this check constraint to ensure that the data flows into one of the three partitions. Okay, first, second or third. Fine. And on, this is very important, on partition scheme and the column name based on which you want to create the partition. The data type of this column name has already been taken care while defining the partition function. Okay, fine, over here. Okay, so we can safely pass on this column name for the partition scheme. So let us create this table. Okay, now insert some records. We see that we are inserting some records specifically for USA, India and Canada, right? So basically this all data will go into three different partition 1, 2 and 3. Okay, so the data has been inserted. Now this is very important. Select star from employee info. Okay, so let us go to showing actual execution plan. Okay, so see over here the actual number of partition count, which is the third last row. Okay, the third last row, which is actual partition count, is 4, which means as we have fired select star from employee, it is reading all partitions. Okay, so the partition value is true, and just below that there is actual partition count, which is 4, which means it is going to all the 4 partitions, physical partitions, to read the data. This is not the behavior that we want. If you want to have performance gain for the queries, then we want to read data of only selected partitions. So in the second example, select star from employee info where employee country in Canada or India, which means now we want to read data of only Canada or India partitions. And as the column based on which the partitions are defined, that is employee country in our case, as that column is forming part of the selection criteria, that is, it is forming part of the where clause, the partition elimination will occur, and now this particular query will read data only from the first and the second partition, that is Canada and India partitions. It will not look into the third partition, that is USA partition, or the fourth partition, which is primary partition, right? It will not look into the third and the fourth partition, which is for USA and primary, right? So in our case, this query will then look for data only in two partitions, that is the partition for Canada and India, that is for the first and the second partition. So let us execute this query and see whether the desired output is as per what we have planned. So let us click execute. Let us go to the execution plan. Now over here you can see that partition is equal to true, and just below that, that is the third last row, it shows as actual partition count equal to 2, and that's the result that we want. Okay, so in this particular case, this particular query is reading data only from 2 partitions. Okay, that is for partition for Canada and partition for India, and this can lead to performance improvement for the queries. Okay, so hence if you include the partition column in your where clause, then you can have better performance of the query with the help of partition scan. Okay, that is with the help of partition elimination, a mechanism called as partition elimination, which we can generally refer to as partition scan. Okay, okay, so now we have seen how to create define partitions, how to partition, and how to use how to create queries which make use of the partitions in order to have partition scan. Okay, now after we have seen for partition scan, let us see few more things. How, if we want to verify whether the table is partitioned or not, this is the way we can verify. Okay, so select star from sys.partitions where object id equal to object id into bracket the table name. In our case, we are passing the employee info name, and it is showing us 4 partitions, partition number 1, 2, 3 and 4. Okay, fine, and it is showing that the data is not compressed in any of the partitions. Okay, Okay. What if you want to partition an existing table which is a non-partition table? Okay. So all that you need to do is create clustered index with the index name on the table name. Okay. And specify the column on which you want to create the clustered index on, and then in order to partition this clustered index, that is the partition, in order to partition this table, you just define on and the partition scheme, and into bracket provide the name of the column based on which you want to partition the data, or based on which you want to bifurcate the data. Okay, so if you execute, you can create partition, you can convert an existing non-partitioned table into a partition table by creating a clustered index which is using the partition scheme, which is actually itself partition based on the partition scheme. Okay. Okay, now let us drop this clustered index. Now, what if you want to create online clustered index for creating this partition table? Then the syntax is create clustered index, index name on table name into bracket the column based on which we want to create the index, with online equal to on, sort in TempDB equal to 1. This is an optional thing that we have provided. We want the sorting to occur in TempDB. Important thing is online equal to 1. This will create a index which is created online, that is the table is available at the time when the index is getting created. On partition scheme into bracket the column, the partitioning column. Okay, so if you execute this statement, it will partition this table. Okay, when the partitioning of this table happens, that is the creation of this clustered index happens online, that is at the time when this index is getting created, the table is available for data queries. Okay, the table is available to the end user. Okay. Okay, now as we have seen many different concepts related to table partitioning, let us see few more concepts which are related to table partitioning. Okay, so what if you want to switch a staging table into a partitioned existing partition table? Then let us just discuss the syntax for some of the scenarios which we can come across while using the partition tables. Okay, so one case where we have a staging table which has been loaded with data, and we want the staging table which is having exactly the same structure as the partition table. We want the staging table to become, that data to become part of the staging partition table. In that case, we can use syntax like this: alter table source table, that is a staging table, switch to target table, that is a partition table, partition and the number of the partition where we want to transfer all this data of the staging table. Okay, now let us see few more examples. Okay, what if you want to switch out a partition from a partition table into a blank staging table? Then the syntax will be alter table source table, which is a partition table, switch partition number to target table, which is the staging table. Okay, so this is second example. Let us see some few more examples. What if we want to switch an existing partition from one table to another table which is also partition and which is having exactly the same database structure or table structure? Then we can directly use such a statement: alter table source table, that is source partition table, switch partition number and the number of the and the partition number which we want to switch to target table, and the partition number where we want to switch this data of the partition. Okay, and let's see a few more examples. What if you want to split an existing partition in an already partition table? So assume that there is a partition table, and if you want to split the data in a particular range in two ranges, that is, we want to divide the existing partition into two different partitions. Okay, and we want to create two different ranges from an existing range. So this can be achieved by alter partition function name, split range and the range value. So if let's say the current partition contains values from 100 to let's say 1000, and if you want values from 100 to 500 in one partition and values greater than 500 to 1000 in second partition, then the value at which you want to split the range is 500. So we will provide 500 over here. Okay, and similarly, if you want to merge two different ranges into one range, let's say based on value 500, if you want to merge values from 100 to 1000, then the syntax that we will use is alter partition function name, merge range and the value. Okay, value in this case will be 500. Okay, so I hope friends, we have seen multiple things in this particular demo. We have seen how to create a database with different file groups based on which we can create partitions for a table. Then we show how to create partition function, how to create partition scheme based on the partition function. Then we show how to create a table which is already partitioned based on the partition scheme. Then we saw that when we insert the data, it actually flows into different partitions. We saw that if we do not use the partitioning column in the where clause, the query tries to retrieve data from all partitions. But if we use partitioning column inside our query in where clause, then it results in partition scan. Okay, also we understood how to see if a current table is partitioned or not and how many partitions are existing. And we also saw how to partition an existing non-partition table using offline as well as online options. Okay, and then we saw multiple code syntax or examples related to how to switch different partitions and how to split and merge the partition ranges. Okay, so I hope friends this video tutorial on table partitioning is useful to you. Thank you.